This could well be your very first Spanish lesson, in which case you'll be able to shock your friends with just how much you can say by the end of it. And of course, I know that not all of you are complete beginners, so I've also included a section for non-beginners. And if this is you, you can skip forward to the time code that's coming up on the screen now, or better still, stick with us for some extra practice. Welcome to ProSpanish. Okay, so have a look at my board. And don't worry, this isn't about learning word lists. Have a look at the right-hand column, the greenish one. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions and you're going to scan for the answers. First of all, find the word that means nightclub or club. So nightclub or a club. Yeah, una discoteca. Una discoteca, a club or a nightclub. Nice and easy. Sounds a bit like disco. Una discoteca. So ir a una discoteca, to go to a nightclub or to go to a club, whatever your preference is. And of course, there are plenty of other places to go. What would it mean if I said ir a una fiesta? You might have heard the word fiesta. Yeah, party. To go to a party. Ir a una fiesta. How about with a country? What would it mean if I said ir a España? Ir a España. Yeah, to go to Spain, or it could be ir a Italia, to go to Italy. Right, can you find the word for the bill? So you've had a drink at a cafe, you have to pay the bill. Yeah, the bill is la cuenta at the top there. La cuenta, the bill. And to pay the bill is pagar la cuenta. Pagar la cuenta. To pay the bill. How would you say, and I'm sure you know the word for please, la cuenta, por favor. La cuenta, por favor. So very straightforward. You don't need any other language there, and it's very polite. Can you find the word that means on time? On time. Just two words. Yeah, a tiempo. A tiempo is on time, and to arrive on time is llegar a tiempo. The double L in llegar is pronounced like a y, like a Y. Llegar a tiempo, to arrive on time. And let's just mix this up a little bit. We saw earlier to pay the bill. Yeah, pagar la cuenta, to pay the bill. How would you say to pay on time? To pay on time, what would that be? Pagar a tiempo. Pagar a tiempo. Of course, we could say to pay the bill on time. Pagar la cuenta a tiempo. But if we want to say to pay on time, it's just pagar, to pay, on time, a tiempo. And by the way, I'm going through this at a faster pace than I do in my ProSpanish Levels 1 to 6 course, because I want to squeeze as much as I can into this video. Whereas in my ProSpanish course, I take a much more measured pace so that you can learn everything as you go, and there's plenty of time to include techniques to make sure that everything sticks. Let's shift our attention now to the left-hand column, the blue one. If you look down, these are all I something. I want, I can, I'm going to, I have to, etc. Okay, try and find I like. Yeah, I like is me gusta. Me gusta, I like. How would you say I like Spain? Me gusta España. Me gusta España. Try to find now I'm going to. Yeah, it's voy a. Voy a, I'm going to. By the way, you can hear that the V in Spanish is a bit more like a B, like an English B. Voy a, I'm going to. How would you say I'm going to Spain? Voy a España. Voy a España. I'm going to Spain. Could also be voy a México, voy a Italia, voy a Colombia, wherever. Have a look at the one at the top. I want is quiero. Quiero, I want. So we could say quiero un café, I want a coffee, or a food. It could be quiero un burrito. Quiero un burrito. Incidentally, as well as a food, burrito is, of course, a little donkey. So to say I want a little donkey, quiero un burrito would be the same thing. Now, the thing that makes the words in this list so powerful, and actually we can call them power verbs, is that they can power up a whole phrase. So we can use any of these words in the blue column followed by any of the ones in the green column. So a second ago we looked at to pay the bill, yeah? Pagar la cuenta. How would you say I'm going to pay the bill? So in the blue column, find I'm going to. So I'm going to pay the bill would be voy a pagar la cuenta. Voy a pagar la cuenta. Or we could use I want that we just looked at. Quiero pagar la cuenta. I want to pay the bill. So I want to pay the bill. But actually, it's more likely to be no quiero pagar la cuenta. What does that mean? No quiero pagar la cuenta. I don't want to pay the bill. And we can put no before any of these in the blue column to change it to a negative. I don't want to do something. No quiero pagar la cuenta. I'm not going to. No voy a, etc. And we'll just take a quick pause here while I mention my very popular Levels 1 to 6 course. This takes the complete beginner or near beginner right up to a conversational level of Spanish in a series of very easy to follow steps. Now, all the lessons on this YouTube channel are supplementary, whereas the core Levels 1 to 6 is very much a step-by-step program delivered by me, the same teacher as all the other videos on this channel. And while the style is very similar to what you'll be used to from these videos on the channel, the key difference is that every lesson carefully builds on the previous lessons so that you can really feel that progress of going from little or no Spanish up to a level where you can confidently hold a conversation in Spanish. And that course download is available exclusively from prospanish.co.uk. And we saw a minute ago, I like. What was I like in the blue column? Me gusta. Me gusta. I like. How would you say I like to arrive on time? What would that be? I like to arrive on time. So now find to arrive on time. Me gusta llegar a tiempo. Me gusta llegar a tiempo. And perhaps there's stuff we don't like to do. So no me gusta. So maybe no me gusta pagar la cuenta. I don't like to pay the bill, or I don't like paying the bill. Let's find now to meet up with someone. Well, to meet up with Pablo. Can you find that? To meet up with Pablo. Yeah, quedar con Pablo. Quedar con Pablo. To meet up with Pablo. How would you say, I'm going to meet up with Pablo? Voy a quedar con Pablo. Voy a quedar con Pablo. And of course it could be Maria instead of Pablo. Voy a quedar con Maria. I'm going to meet up with Maria. Okay, try to find the word now for I can. So near the top of the blue column. So I can is, puedo. Puedo. I can. And we saw earlier how easy it is to make a negative. So how would you say I can't? What would I can't be? No puedo. No puedo. I can't. How would you say I can't meet up with But actually, let's say I can't meet up with Maria. What would that be? I can't meet up with Maria. No puedo quedar con María. No puedo quedar con María. Let's see something else that we can't do. We've already said to pay the bill, so it could be I can't pay the bill. No puedo pagar la cuenta. What about I can't go to a club? I can't go to a nightclub. So maybe I've got to get up early in the morning. How would you say that? No puedo ir a una discoteca. No puedo ir a una discoteca. And see if you can find the word for to chat. To chat. Yeah, to chat is charlar. To chat. I could have put in there hablar, which is to speak. So we could have had hablar contigo, to speak with you. But charlar is a nice word as well. So charlar contigo, to chat with you. Contigo, with you. And we might want to say, I can't chat with you. So I haven't got much time. How would you say it? I can't chat with you, or I can't chat to you. No puedo charlar contigo. No puedo charlar contigo. And let's just take contigo, with you, and apply it somewhere else. We saw before to meet up with Pablo. Can you find that? Yeah, quedar con Pablo. So instead of meeting up with Pablo, how would you say to meet up with you? Yes, quedar contigo. Quedar contigo, to meet up with you. How would you say, I can't meet up with you? What would that be? No puedo quedar contigo. No puedo quedar contigo. Or maybe there's some urgency that you have to. In the blue column, can you find I have to? Yeah, tengo que, I have to. So how would you say, I have to meet up with you? Tengo que quedar contigo. Tengo que quedar contigo. And it could be very important to arrive on time. How would you say, I have to arrive on time, like I must arrive on time? What would that be? Tengo que llegar a tiempo. Tengo que llegar a tiempo. Okay, now another to-do word. So looking in the green column, find to return today. Yeah, volver hoy. Volver hoy. So notice the V again, sounding more like a B in Spanish. Volver hoy, to return today. Now, often in English, it would be much more common to say to come back or to go back rather than return. Return sounds a little bit formal. So I've got to come back today, or I've got to go back today. So how would you say, I have to go back today? What would that be? I have to go back today. Tengo que volver hoy. Tengo que volver hoy. And in the blue column, look for I hope. Yeah, I hope is espero. Espero. I hope. How would you say, I hope to come back? Actually, let's just say, I hope to come back. So maybe you're on holiday somewhere and you say, I hope to come back. What would that be? Espero volver. Espero volver. And how would you say, I hope to come back with you. Espero volver contigo. Espero volver contigo. Okay, let's mix a few things up now. So we've got to come back today, volver hoy. And we've also got to meet up with Pablo. How would you say to meet up with Pablo today? What would that be? Quedar con Pablo hoy. Quedar con Pablo hoy. How would you say, I hope to meet up with Pablo today? Espero quedar con Pablo hoy. Espero quedar con Pablo hoy. Okay, now in the blue column, try to find I tend to. I tend to. Yes, suelo, suelo, I tend to. And this can also be translated as I usually. So I tend to get up early, or I usually get up early. Suelo. How would you say I usually arrive on time, or I tend to arrive on time? What would that be? Suelo llegar a tiempo. Suelo llegar a tiempo. How about I don't usually arrive on time? What would that be? No suelo llegar a tiempo. No suelo llegar a tiempo. And how about, so I'm talking about going on trips. I tend to rent a car or hire a car. I usually rent a car. What would that be? And we haven't mentioned to rent or hire a car yet, so I'll give you a moment to find it. Yeah, alquilar un coche, to rent or hire a car. So how would you say, I usually rent a car? Suelo alquilar un coche. Suelo alquilar un coche. And let's mix things up again. How would you say, I usually pay the bill on time? So I usually pay the bill on time. So we know I usually, suelo, and then to pay, pagar, and on time. Now that's connected at the moment to arriving on time. Yeah, a tiempo. So, suelo pagar a tiempo. Suelo pagar a tiempo. I usually pay on time. And going back to rent a car, alquilar un coche, what do you think it means if I say alquilar un apartamento? Yes, to rent an apartment. Alquilar un apartamento. How would you say, I'm going to rent an apartment? Voy a alquilar un apartamento. Voy a alquilar un apartamento. And it could be, I hope to do that. Espero alquilar un apartamento. Have a look now at to have a coffee. Try and find that. Yeah, it's tomar un café. Tomar un café. It really translates a bit more to take a coffee. Tomar is to take. To take a coffee, tomar un café. We could also use that to take that tomar with tomar una ducha, to take a shower. It could be tomar una copa de vino, to have or to take a glass of wine. But we'll stick with tomar un café, to have a coffee for the moment. How would you say, I'm going to have a coffee. What would that be? Voy a tomar un café. Voy a tomar un café. And maybe it's something you need to help wake you up. How would you say, I have to have a coffee? Tengo que tomar un café. Tengo que tomar un café. Now have a look at I've just. So try and find in the first column, I've just. Yeah, acabo de. I've just, acabo de. And this is really useful because it gets us into the past. So you can say, I've just done whatever it might be. I've just paid the bill. I've just rented something. I've just eaten. Acabo de. How would you say, I've just had a coffee? And it'll look a bit more like, I've just to have a coffee, or I've just to take a coffee, because of tomar being like to take. Acabo de tomar un café. Acabo de tomar un café. And I'm sure you know the word for one in Spanish. Uno. One is uno. So somebody asks you if you want a coffee, but you've just had one. So how would you respond? I've just had one. Acabo de tomar uno. Acabo de tomar uno. And how about, I've just had a coffee with Pablo? What would that be? Acabo de tomar un café con Pablo. How about, I've just paid the bill? What would that be? Acabo de pagar la cuenta. Acabo de pagar la cuenta. And another one that gets us into the past is I tried. Can you find that in the first column? I tried. Intenté. Intenté. How would you say I tried to pay? What would that be? Intenté pagar. Intenté pagar. How about I tried to arrive on time? What would that be? Yeah, intenté llegar a tiempo. Intenté llegar a tiempo. So you can see already just how quickly it's possible to learn Spanish when it's taught in the right way. And before we go on to the part for non-beginners, a final reminder that my Levels 1 to 6 ProSpanish course is only available from prospanish.co.uk. Okay, so let's move on to our non-beginners section. We've got a few changes, but I've kept the infinitive verbs the same. I've just cut off the bits that went with them, so we've just got the verb. To pay the bill, we just have to pay. And in our first column, we've got no es que, so it's not that. So it's not that I don't want to do whatever, or it's not that I have to do whatever. No es que. And we've also got something similar. No es solo que. So it's not just that, whatever it might be. And we've got no significa que. It doesn't mean that I can't go wherever. It doesn't mean I'm going to, whatever it might be. And then what was our first column is now our second column. So we did have things like quiero, puedo, voy a, tengo que. The problem is now, if we want to say, it's not just that I want to live with you, for example, or it doesn't mean that I'm going to pay the bill, let's say. Problem now is that those things, well, it looks right, but they'd be grammatically incorrect because When we have negative phrases like we have in the first column, it's not that, or it's not just that, or it doesn't mean that, these are always followed by a subjunctive. Now, don't get put off by me saying the subjunctive. As I mentioned in an earlier video, there's no more to this than just ticking off the use cases as you learn them, and quite soon you'll have no problem with the subjunctive. And one use case is that the subjunctive always follows this kind of negative phrase, so we can call it a negation or a denial phrase. It's not that. And there are lots of other phrases that would fit into that category that would be followed by the subjunctive. So I'm not saying that, whatever it might be, but we'll keep it simple with what we've got here now. So we just need now to change the second column to subjunctive endings, the subjunctive form. So we'll stick with I, the first person, because that's what we did in the first part of the video. And all we have to do is, well, if you imagine what he or she is in any of these verbs, so he or she wants is quiere, and you'll know that in the present tense with he or she, it can either end in an E or an A. And all you do is switch those around. So quiere, that ends in an E. So the subjunctive form would be quiera. And that applies to he or she, but it's also I in the subjunctive. So the I and the he, she, it in the subjunctive form in the present, they have the same, it's the same word, the same ending. So quiera is the present subjunctive for I want, but also he or she wants. But we're just going to stick with I want for the moment. And so we can see that the rest are pueda. So again, he or she can ends in an E, puede. So flip it to the other ending. So pueda. Vaya a. So it's completely irregular. So it doesn't fit that pattern that I just explained. So I'm going to in the subjunctive is vaya a. Tends to, or I tend to, subjunctive, suela, me guste, and espere. Okay, see if you can work out what these phrases mean then. What does it mean if I say, no es que quiera pagar la cuenta? No es que quiera pagar la cuenta. It's not that I want to pay the bill. How about, no significa que vaya a quedar con Pablo. No significa que vaya a quedar con Pablo. It doesn't mean that I'm going to meet up with Pablo. How about, no es que espere volver hoy. No es que espere volver hoy. It's not that I'm hoping to come back today, or it's not that I hope to come back today. And what does it mean if I say, no es solo que quiera vivir contigo. No es solo que quiera vivir contigo, etc., etc. It's not just that I want to live with you. Okay, how would you say, it doesn't mean I'm going to come back today. No significa que vaya a volver hoy. No significa que vaya a volver hoy. And how about, it's not that I usually arrive late. So tarde, in case you've forgotten the word for late. It's not that I usually arrive late. No es que suela llegar tarde. No es que suela llegar tarde. And how about, it's not that I don't want to chat with you. What would that be? No es que no quiera charlar contigo. No es que no quiera charlar contigo. What about, it doesn't mean that I like going with you, wherever that might be. It doesn't mean that I like going with you. No significa que me guste ir contigo. No significa que me guste ir contigo. And how about, it's not just that I usually pay. No es solo que suela pagar. No es solo que suela pagar, and then whatever might follow that. And how about, it doesn't mean that I can't meet up with you. No significa que no pueda quedar contigo. No significa que no pueda quedar contigo. And just before we go, another reminder that my ProSpanish Levels 1 to 6 course is available for download from prospanish.co.uk.